Did they hit their land drop finally? Yeah, no. Is that a 4? It is a 4. Okay, so we'll just erasure. Okay, that can't happen. Definitely not. Absolutely no. And even if they did play Light of Hope correctly on Ashiok's erasure, we would have been fine because we had the backup erasure. Nissa is fine, actually. We don't care about Nissa. I'm gonna erase him from existence. Hey, this is DeadTurin here, lead playtester for Black Magic Labs. We're calling this deck Ambush, but it's essentially a Sultai Flash deck. If you ever been wondering what I'd be playing if Paper Magic was going on near me, this is what it would be. So what do we got in this deck? First, we're playing Anticipate, which I think is an undervalued card that's really good. It allows us to dig 3 deep and choose the best of those 3. It gets around Narset because it doesn't make us draw. So we look at the top 3, we pick one, put the rest on the bottom. It's that instant speed, that's real nice. We also have Brineborn Cutthroat. It's a 2/1 flash for 1 and a blue. Whenever you cast a spell during your opponent's turn, you put a 1/1 counter on it. Everything in here is going to be flash or an instant, so we'll basically be playing everything on their turn anyway, so as long as this is out, we play a spell, we pump it up. Wildborn Preserver. This is a 2/2 flash with reach, which is very important as there's only one other thing I think in the deck, which is, yeah, the Brazen Borrower. That can block flying. That's very important as the Flyers deck is probably the hardest deck I think for this deck. Whenever another non-human creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay X and you put X 1/1 counters on it. So not only does it get bigger, it gets bigger whenever we play another non-human and we can just spend our leftover mana into it. This is great on an end step, or if we just need to go in and get damage in, we can put something in on our turn and pump it up for big lethal shot maybe even. So it's a great card. It's one of the few green cards in this deck. It's mostly a Dimir deck. Then we also are playing Cunning Nightbounder. This card puts up most of the work of the deck. Between this card and this card, Slitherwisp, that's essentially what the deck is running on. That's the engine of the deck. So this is a blue or black and then another blue or black for a 2/2 flash. It is the only human in the deck, so it won't trigger the Wildborn Preserver. But it gives other flash spells 1 less to cast for casting cost, and they also can't be countered. So this is very good against control decks if we can pop this out fast, or against the mirror, the Sultai Flash or the Simic Flash decks running out there. The other reason besides Preserver to run green is Assassin's Trophy. This is the best removal in the format. I don't care if it gives your opponent land, as long as you play smartly with it and you pay attention to what your opponent's lands are like and what kind of deck they're playing. This card will definitely put in some work. You just have to be smart about when you're giving them a land. Otherwise, there's no better removal. It destroys anything you want, as long as it's not indestructible, which means we're not having to run enchantment removal, not having to run creature removal, not having to run planeswalker removal. This is it. This removes everything, even lands. Then for the other removal, it's more of a tempo removal. It's Brazen Borrower. So you can do Petty Theft for 1 and a blue. It returns target non-land permanent opponent controls to their hand. That's usually nice on end step to bounce something to their hand so that we can clear the way for blockers, or just something we can't deal with right away that maybe we have a counter in hand and we want to counter it when they try and replay it. Then on the creature side, it's 2 blue and 1 for a 3/1 flying flash, and it can only block creatures with flying. So that's not the greatest because there's going to be a lot of decks that are going to be on the ground that this card essentially can't do anything once it's out on the field. However, 3 damage worth of flying damage a turn is not bad for attacking, and it does block flyers, which helps us against the Azorius Flying deck, which, as I said, I think is the hardest deck for this deck. It does pretty well against most other decks, but that deck is very quick and very synergistic that it sometimes can out-tempo us. Now, Slitherwisp, this is the card draw engine of the deck. So it's 2 black and a blue for a 3/2 flash. Not overly great there. I wish it had 3 defense, but what can you do? However, whenever you cast another flash spell, you draw a card and each opponent loses a life. So if you are in a situation where your opponent has walled up, you can't get through their blockers, they really can't attack into you because maybe you got a big wild Born Preserver or a Brineborn Cutthroat, then you can just sit there and slowly drain them by playing flash spells. Also, it allows you to start playing flash spells real cheap if you have the Nightbounder out, where you can play this for one and then play this for one, and each time you're drawing a card, you're draining them, and you're just trying to get further into deck and find better stuff and overwhelm them. Now, for the counter package in the deck, we're playing Ashiok's Erasure. This enchantment is one of the best counter spells. It's a flash enchantment, so it gets cheaper with the Nightbounder. It can cost up only 2 blue, but it starts at 2 blue and 2 of any. When it enters the battlefield, you exile target spell. When it leaves the battlefield, you return that spell to its owner's hand, and they can't cast spells that this card exiles. So say you play it on their Ajani's Primate in the life gain deck. Well, now they can't play Ajani Primate for the rest of the game until they handle this enchantment. Also with the Nightbounder, it makes it so it can't be countered. So this is essentially an uncounterable counter spell against control, and it shuts them out of playing cards, which is really nice when you can shut down their board wipes or other big cards like Dream Trawler or Narset. Then we have some Unwinds. Unwind's great. It's just a simple, straightforward counterspell for 2 blue and 2 of any. However, it untaps up to 4 lands, which is nice because if we can play lands like this that come into play tapped, or like the Temple that come into play tapped, and use it to untap them to then play maybe a more color intensive like the Slitherwith or like the Nightback Ambusher. So it allows us to counterspell and then play another creature or another counter spell behind it, or just a destruction spell. So it really gives us a lot of options, and it really allows us to do multiple things against their opponent and really get that tempo play off them. Then the third reason to play green, and really between the Preserver, between the Trophy, and this card, Nightback Ambusher, that's really all the green you really need in the main, but this card puts in some huge work. It gets cheaper with the Nightbounder, otherwise it's a 2 green and 2 of any for 4/4 wolf. It has flash. All other wolves and werewolves, we don't play any werewolves, so we don't care about that, get +1/+1. The beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell this turn, you create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. Well, that 2/2 is going to be a 3/3 as long as the ambusher's on the field. Therefore, you'll have essentially a generator of making 3/3s each turn. And every time one of those 3/3s pops out, it triggers the Preserver. And since we're playing at flash speed, we don't have to play during our turn, so we're almost always going to get a wolf, which is nice. Then for the lands for the deck, we're playing a castle, playing one of each basic. We're playing the Castle Locthwain for card draw. We're playing 3 Scry lands, playing in Dimir colors because most of the deck is Dimir, and hitting double black and a blue on turn 3 is really what we want to do. That's the hardest part of this deck, is hitting that curve. And if we do, we usually can win. So we're going to really focus in on those Dimir lands. We could even run another one instead of the island or the swamp, but I really like having each one of these to fetch in case we get trophied, or just have an untapped land that's easily accessible so we don't have to shock in. We're playing the whole 12 set of shocks, and then we're playing the Sultai Triome. It can cycle, which is important because it allows us to draw deeper into the deck when we have nothing else to do, and otherwise it just plays all our colors, so that's pretty straightforward there. Now the sideboard has really changed. We were running 4 Quench and 2 Tails End and one other card I can't remember now because of Teferi, because Teferi just shut this deck down and you had to get under him real quick. Since Teferi's been banned, we've opened the sideboard up a little bit and focus on some of the other weaknesses of the deck, and that's super aggressive decks such as the Flyers deck and sometimes the mono red decks. Because of that, we're playing Spectre Shriek. The reason why we're playing this is it hits any card that's not a land for 1 mana. So if they reveal their hand, you choose a non-land card, then you exile it, which is important. So you can exile Euro, you can exile any of these other Titans or some of these other cards that can come back from the graveyard. And then if that card you exile is non-black, you have to exile a card. Now generally most of the time us exiling a card is not a big deal because we're tempoing. So we're going to exile a card that's not very important. Sometimes one of these cards and anticipate, or just a land that we don't need early on. So usually the 1 mana cost is more important than the fact that we have to exile a card. And Duress only hits non-creatures, so that's problematic too, because some of these big creature decks can pop out some creatures quickly that are stronger than our creatures, and we want to hit those before they get to the board. We're running one of Shadow Spear. This card I'd go back and forth on. We need a way to gain life. This is the best way to gain life. It also allows us to interact with hexproof and indestructible creatures, and that plus Assassin's Trophy right here is really good combo because we can get rid of their hexproof, we can get rid of their indestructible, and then we can kill their creature. Now, for some of the quicker decks, we play 2 of Quench in the side to pull in. We play a One Tail's End because it's nice to counter abilities as well as get rid of any legendary spells such as Planewalkers or whatever other spell. Against control, we have Heroic Interventions to give our guys hexproof and indestructible to make sure that our guys stay on the field and really devalue every card in their deck as much as possible. 4 Frilled Mystics to go more control if we find that maybe the Cutthroat is not putting enough work because they have too many ways to kill it, or we're playing a counter matchup. I'd rather have the Frilled Mystics to come in. It gives a body on the field and it counters a spell. It's a real nice spell. 1 Sublime Epiphany. This card is just a really good card for 6. You can counter spell, you can counter an activated or triggered ability. You can return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. This includes yours in case you need to. And you can create a token of target creature you control, and you can draw a card. You choose 1 or more. So this card is really kind of like a blowout card. It's not going to be that good in the main just because against quicker decks we don't really want to see it. We rather have a little bit quicker cards, but against control, it's amazing. So that's the deck. Let's see how she plays. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. Bag of bagels. Man. Alright, tempting hand. I mean, we do have a preserver, we do have a trophy. We could scry to another land, hopefully, and then maybe if we hit runner lands, as long as one's green, we get double Night Packer. I think this is fine. Okay, we got blue. Probably playing mono blue or blue-white Flyers. We'll keep that land on top. So next turn, I think we go for the Nightbounder. Blue-white Flyers. There it is. Alright, we'll see how this goes. Main board, this is going to be rough. We're going to shock in, and we're going to pass the turn. We might need a trophy, which is why we're going to do that. We're going to let him get in. Yeah, we're not going to worry about trying to block now. We could play the Preserver and block. Go ahead and play the Nightbounder. If they counter it, they counter it. That way we'll save the Preserver. Not sure they know what they're going to do. Come on, opponent. What do you got? Yes, it's a Cunning Nightbounder. There it is. There's Lofty Denial. I had a feeling they had that in their hands. We could have played it before instead of on their turn, but I think that's okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and shock in again. And then we'll play the Slither Wisp. And then next turn we'll play the Preserver. They're only hitting us to 1-1 right now. I don't think it's pressing that we do anything. Sure. They're going to hit us for 1. Sure, well, okay, then we'll play the Slither Wisp. Let's see if they have another counter spell. We're saving the Preserver because it is our only Flyer blocker. Nothing. They're stuck at 2 lands though. You gonna bounce it? Yep. Brazen Borrower. So they don't have a counter. We might just run it out there. Yeah, let's run it out there. Let's play this. Let's just play this now. And then next turn, we're gonna hold up for either Erasure or Ambusher. I don't think they hit another land. Are they gonna bounce us again? I feel like they're gonna bounce us. There it is. They got 2 Brazen Borrowers and no lands. Alright, we're just passing turn. We'll Slither Wisp on end step. Maybe they Ambusher. I think we gotta put damage on the board. Sure. We want to be able to open up Erasure in case they do get something good here. Did they hit their land drop finally? Creatures with flying cost 1 less and it gets bigger. Yeah, no. We're going to say no to that. Go ahead and play this tapped and then pass the turn. They're still mana screwed. Okay, there's a temple, but they don't get to play. They're gonna bottom unless it's a land. I bet they're playing 22 lands, so they're just hitting the wrong end of their deck, which is good for us. Slow that deck down. Okay. Hit in for 1. We're going to do what? What are you doing? Okay, Ambusher. Hopefully no counterspell. Yep. Do they have the 3rd Brazen Borrower? That would be gross. Nope. Alright, we'll pass the turn. So, we have choice here. If they... I should have tacked in. That was dumb. We're not going to Erasure that. We could Erasure something here. I can't believe I missed the attack in with the Ambusher. You know, Arena, sometimes you just get caught and your triggers just, go to next step. We'll let them have a Hero's Talk. That's perfectly fine. Alright, they're going to try and come in at us. So, let's go Slither Wisp here. And then we're going to Preserver, which will drain them and draw us a card. Hopefully a land so we can keep the train rolling. They might counter here. No response. We'll block Sailor. Do they got another Brazen? Rally Wings. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Next, I'll attack. Okay. And turn. Make a wolf. If we lose by 4 damage, it'll be because we messed up with the Ambusher. Sure, we can't block. If they have Rally to Wings, we will Erasure it. Pass. Rally. So, Lofty Denial. Is that a 4? It is a 4. So even then, okay, so we'll just Erasure. I was thinking of maybe Nightbounding in first to give us counter protection, but if they just counter the Nightbounder, then we can't play the Erasure anyway, so... Yep. Okay, so we're gonna get hit for 3. We have lethal on board. I'm just gonna say good game. Let's go ahead and get in. They have to bounce too, and I don't think they can. Sure, Brazen Borrower, that is fine. And then, boom, we go, Wisp. And then we go Nightbounder. Boom. See, played a Flash deck on our turn to win. And that's usually what you do with the Wisp. Either you're gaining slow card advantage on their turn, or you're just piling on damage real quick on your turn. Alright. GOTJ 555. Was that 4 5s? There's only 3 5s there. Okay, this seems pretty good. Bounder, Cutthroat Erasure, so we could go, yeah, that's pretty good. We'll go this, then this on the same turn. So we want blue mana down now. And let's hope we draw 1 more blue for the Erasure. Alright, we're either playing Flyers or Life Gain. I'll go ahead and pay 2 life. I'm just going to flash this in now. I think is what I want to do is just flash that in. Sure, Daxos. Oh, sweet, Breeding Pool. Okay. Now we'll pay 2 life and pass the turn. We got Erasure in case they drop the Pride Mate, and we got the Brineborn into the Nightbounder if they don't. Healer Hawk, that's fine. We're only worried about big spells here, we're not worried about little tiny things like that. I suppose no blocks. Yeah, no blocks. We want to hold up counter magic still. So we're gonna go Cutthroat. And then Nightbounder. Hopefully we draw a creature and not a land. A wolf would be great, because then we could counter and play a wolf. 2 counters, can't play them both, so we'll go ahead and scry here. Ditch a land if we got it. Trophy. I guess we keep it there. I think we regret it if we remove it. Yeah, because we got to be able to do it the 3-drop, 3 white lady too. Linden or whatever. Well, go for broke with the attacks. We can erasure if we need to. Pass the turn. So we can counter this turn. Next turn we can counter and trophy. I think we're pretty good. We're going to beat on him with the Cutthroat. Okay, that can't happen. Definitely not. Absolutely no. It's a counter spell. I'm going to counter Heliod. I'm going to erase him from existence. There you go. Yes, you are being countered. You have no response. You're playing white. You can wait till the enchantment hits the board and then you can try and kill it. But until then, you can't do anything. Are you just going to time us out? Ugh. Getting salty, opponent. Guess we're just waiting. They might just give up here because they can't play Heliod for the rest of the game. Most of these decks don't run any enchantment destruction. Some of them do run Light of Hope, which I think Light of Hope is perfect in this deck. 4 life or a 1/1 counter or destroy an enchantment for 1 mana. Should be running Light of Hope if it's not. And they're just gonna... Hey! They're gonna Light of Hope their own guy instead of Light of Hoping ours. You just wait till it hits and then you Light a Hope. Okay. Go ahead and tack in. We don't care how they block. So they were playing Light a Hope. So when you do this though, you have to do it right. Because when this hits, if you Light a Hope, it'll permanently exile this thing. Because it won't be around to be removed. It's like the old Oblivion Rings. So you have to wait till it hits the board. And then till it exiles, and then you can play your Light of Hope. Otherwise, you're just creating a permanent exile counterspell for me. There's a card that has a Venture for 1 and it returns a permanent to your hand. That plus this card, you can make a permanent exile counterspell that doesn't actually counter. It's a pretty good tool. We weren't going to play Esper, otherwise we would. Let's put that in play tap and let them go. I think they've already given up though, and even if they did play Light of Hope correctly on Ashiok's Erasure, we would have been fine because we had the backup Erasure. So they would have played it the next turn, we'd have Erasered, still have Trophy, still pushing damage. So what makes these Flash decks tough is they can push damage and at the same time they can destroy or counter or do other things to break your tempo up, and all the while you're trying to deal with their damage coming forth and stalling on your own spells because they're playing at the end of your turn instead of playing on their turn. So you can't respond. You have to be much more proactive. And these kind of decks just kind of, they do their thing, but they don't do it fast enough. Like if it was the flying deck, those decks can get under us. And there we go. Good game, opponent, even though you crapped out. Boom. Ready. Fertilance. Alright, Fertilance. What do you got? Huh. Well, I mean, this hand's reasonably fine. I don't see anything wrong. Let's keep it. Got a little of this and a little of that. Alright, play a Triome. Probably flash in for Breeding Pool into... Ooh, do you want to hit Breeding Pool? Actually, we probably want to hit Watery Grave for the double black. For the Slither Wisp. Sure. Visionary. We are going to go ahead and play our Bounder now. So we're playing Simic. They could be ramping, they could be flashing. I'm thinking it's a Simic Ramp deck. I could be wrong. I don't think it's worth wasting our guy. I think they'll trade happily if they're ramping, so. we do gotta watch out for Ugin. Mutate boy. They get a basic. I think we're gonna let that resolve. Oh, they're not mutating because that's a human, is it? No, it's not. Why didn't they mutate? Interesting. Yeah, we'll go Slitherwisp. We want to get the card draw going. Ugh, we could use the land. So let's cast. Well, I do need the land, but I think we need to hold Trophy up because they're going to have 5 lands. They'll have 6 lands. Yeah, I think we want to hold Trophy. As much as I want to try and get that land out. Cavalier of Thorns. Okay. It's a beefy guy. What'd they find? Alright, so it's definitely a ramp deck. We see Nissa hit a bunch of lands. Chose Scryland, that makes the most sense. It's not looking great here. But they're not attacking it, so we're okay. Go ahead and draw some cards. So we don't lose anything for playing this now. So let's play this now to draw 2 cards and try and get a land. There's the land. Sweet. That's perfect. Alright, so we can bounce, we can preserver, we can just trophy, and we can anticipate. I don't think there's any good attacks, so we'll pass the turn. I'm thinking we go preserver into preserver, pump the first preserver, and get 2 counters on the cutthroat. However, they're gonna mutate. Oh, I don't really like this move. I think we just trophy. I don't like this auspicious whatever card. We don't need them start getting cards straight from the library. It'll still hit the field, they still get a 6/6, they just don't get the mutate triggers. Auspicious Strix. Oh, they still had another mutate. That's okay. Got a force. Oh, and they got Godzilla. Because it's 2 mutates, because it's a mutator from the thing. Shoot. Okay. Oh, but we can bounce Godzilla. Okay, so we have to leave mana to bounce. We have mana to rewind. We're going to shock this in. And then we got to pass the turn. So we have to be careful of how we play this. But I think we can bounce, preserver, preserver, pump. So we're going to rewind this. Untap those lands again. Okay, they're going for a second one. We're going to bounce it to their hand. Yep. Yep. Okay, they're attacking in with those. We're going to go to a preserver to draw some cards. Land. Not what we wanted. We'll play another preserver. There's the trophy we wanted, however we can't play it. So we're going to take the action and go ahead and pump up that preserver. Okay, so if we kill this, they can stack their deck to get Nissa next turn. How do we want to do this? I mean, we could just go ahead and kill Godzilla. It has trample, this doesn't trample, right? So if that's what, 10, 12? Yeah. Yeah, let's block like that. We'll take 5. So well, it's a 3 for 1, but we stay alive. Okay. I think we need to anticipate. Yeah, let's anticipate. Okay, rewind seems great. Get a swamp down. Pass the turn. Alright. We'll rewind the first spell. Untap this, 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 and this. Then we will trophy the next spell. I will flash this in. Draw some cards here. Drain. There's the ambusher. We'll send... do we send the knight? No, I think we send the Slither Wisp. No, I think we send... we gotta send one to their death. The Nightbounder is too valuable. I think we send a Slither Wisp to its death. Okay, we got a trophy. We can shock in 2, 4, 6 lands. So right now we can play those, that, into that. Let's see, no reach. So let's go ahead and get in for 3. Let's go ahead. So 2 plus 3. If we shock, that gives us 2. So we can trophy, we can bounce, and we can night pack, or we can slither. So I think we shock this in and go to 2. And then we pass the turn. We're hanging on here. It's a really close game here. I think we can win next turn if we can survive this turn and we can play it right. I think you have to play the Brazen Borrower because it flies, but we'll see what they do here. Target creature you control gets X plus X until end of turn, and then it fights one creature you don't control. So I don't want to give them something back for next turn, so we're going to bounce it. Yep, that does nothing. Alright, Nissa, who shakes it up. Nissa is fine, actually. We don't care about Nissa. Good game, opponent. Sure.
The land fights for us.
So we're gonna have to, let's see, we can send in the ambusher. Okay, we can trophy here. And then send this in. And then a block here and a block here. Good game. Attack here. Nightbounder. Boom, got him. That's how you do it. This just had to keep tempoing, keep tempoing, keep tempoing. And we grinded them out at the end. That was real good. I liked that a lot. And that's the power of this deck. I really think why this deck is so powerful is because you can just grind them out like that. Well, as you can see, we only got 3 games in. They were a bit longer on this time around. Couldn't get 4. I was hoping for 4. But anyways, the deck played really well. We didn't lose a game. It really just grinds. The combination between the Cutthroat, the Nightbounder, the Slither Wisp, I mean, it's a real tempo-y, it's a real grindy deck. Especially against that ramp deck the last game, you could really see that our opponent just really struggled to hit that I won moment. Every time they tried to do it, we're like, destroy your creature, return that creature to your hand, we're gonna draw some more cards and keep this game rolling. And I think this deck really is very versatile, and I think it's really hard for a lot of the decks in the format with Teferi gone to kind of keep up with the tempo-ness of this deck. I think the Sultai version is supreme when it comes to flash decks. I don't think the Simic deck plays as well. Yes, it tries to counter more and tries to be more tempo-y, but it doesn't have the Slither Wisp. It doesn't have Assassin's Trophy. And then you're kind of playing the rest of this with some counter spells, and I don't think it does it. I think this card is too important, and this card is too important, and I think that's what makes this deck. Hopefully the best of 3s will be just as good as the best of 1s were, but this deck just rolls, and I hope we just keep on rolling. As always, like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. Also, please consider supporting Black Magic Labs on Patreon. Thanks.